Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am so excited today because my guest is going to talk about exactly that, how to make your business successful. So I love this. So please join me in welcoming Scott Beebe to our program today. Welcome, Scott. How are you?
Deb, I'm doing great. So excited. Love your energy, and I'm excited to have the conversation.
I love it. And I've only had a little bit of coffee today. Just imagine. So let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this. So Scott Beebe is the founder of mybusinessonpurpose.com and the author of Let Your Business Burn. Stop putting out fires, discover purpose, and build a business that matters. Scott founded Business on Purpose because he saw there was a need to help business owners who were weighed down by chaos to have a clear vision when it comes to the success and future of their business. He created the Business on Purpose roadmap to liberate businesses from the chaos of working in their business and help them get their lives back. Scott walked on to a D1 SEC football team. Those are just pretty important little teams there, with only 1 year of high school football experience. And he eventually earned a full scholarship during his final 2 years. Moving to Texas after college with his new bride, Ashley, Scott attended and graduated theology school. Then he worked as a legal drug salesman for Pfizer, selling Lipitor, Viagra, and other well-known products. I love that you say legal. Scott and Ashley planted 2 churches, pastored one of them, and have been working in rural Nigeria since 2005, building a platform for sustainable partnership with Nigerians through a variety of sectors, including business, finance, and agriculture. Scott, Ashley, and their 3 children live in Buffalo, South Carolina, which is just outside of Hilton Head. And so they spend most of their time on the water. Well, actually, the 3 kids are now out and about. But anyhow, this is great. And it's so nice to meet you, Scott. Welcome to the program.
Deb, thanks so much.
I love it. Well, I always like to ask my guests how they got to where they are today. So tell us just a little bit more about that.
Yeah. This is my blueprint is a bit of a fragmented blueprint, and it's not a linear path by any means. I don't know that anybody is. The challenge is when I read your biography one day or anybody's biography, everything seems so linear and it seems to make sense as it goes. And yet, if I were to sit in your mind or in anybody else's mind, we would see now there's a lot of things that had to happen in order to be where you're at, even if you like where you're at. So I happen to like where I'm at today. And so how we got there, I actually was, I'll take you back to birth, but I promise not to belabor this. I was born in right outside of DC. My dad was in the Navy at the time.
Okay.
And so we lived DC, Charlotte, Houston, Texas, Portland, Oregon. And then I finished high school in Greenville, South Carolina. So my childhood was literally sort of circumnavigating the lower 48.
Right, and, the little military brat type of thing.
Yeah, it feels like that. What's crazy is my dad was in the Navy for about 4 years, and then he was an engineer, which is sort of similar. And so we just followed work around the country. He was in the pulp and paper business and some other industrial engineering type of things. And so we followed that work. I finished high school in Greenville, South Carolina, which is quite a cultural shift from Portland, Oregon, for sure. And then ended up going to the University of South Carolina. That's where Ashley and after that, took a nonlinear path to seminary in Fort Worth, Texas, so to theology school, and then made the obvious jump while I was in seminary to sell reference materials and to financial planners and attorneys as a telemarketer. And so, it's kind of the old joke. You read some of it in the bio there that I was a telemarketer, a drug salesman, and a pastor. And I think it sounds like the intro to a really, really
It's going to be a movie of the week, right?
And so all of that happened. And out of that, as you read, it was a mix between working in sort of church environments, in the business community, multinationals and in small NGO sector. So it was all of the things. I did not map that out. Just sort of that's how it happened. And then February 27th of 2015, we were in a board room in the mid cities of Fort Worth, Texas, between Fort Worth and Dallas, called Hearst. And we were sitting there, and it was a 3-hour emergency board meeting. There was a whole series of things that had happened months prior. I was not a board member. I was what they called the international director. So I was responsible to the board, providing them feedback and things that are around and all those sorts of things. Well, we had a bit of a board meltdown. I got a first-class PhD in how to deal with a board through that time. And I walked into the boardroom employed at 9 a.m. on that Friday, and I walked out unemployed at about 12:30.
Oh.
And 8 of the 9 board members had resigned that day. And we had a bit, if you've ever heard of the old classic coup d'etat, we had a coup d'etat among the board. We had one board member go rogue. He happened to have a lot of fiat power.
Had enough
and
to.
he used that fiat power. Yep. And so they dissolved my role, and I left. And it was really sad. I actually went to lunch with one of the board members who had just resigned, and they were all together, those 8 that resigned. And so we were chit-chatting. It was like, you're going to do? I'm like, man, I had no time to think about that right now. And so we like to joke, you don't have to worry about me because I was married to a public school teacher. So we were swimming in cash, as you can imagine. 39 years old, married, 3 kids. And so that next Monday is when I called 2 friends of mine, Chris Dalzell, Jarek Taylor. And I said, hey guys, I am one owned a home building company. The other owned a landscape supply and nursery. I said, hey, I'm going to start a coaching firm and I want to coach both of you. And they were like, okay. Like they were both enthusiastic and cautious all at the same time.
Right. How much is it going to cost us?
Yeah. And so what I did is I built a 1-day vision, mission, values workshop. And some of my background with Pfizer, and believe it or not, Theology school, actually learned a lot there about that.
Right.
And sort of how to create a snapshot of the future of what you see. And so I built this full day workshop and I pitched it to both of those guys. And I'm embarrassed to say what figure I put on it. But they both signed up immediately for it because it was so inexpensive. And they thought, this is a nice guy and whatever. So we went through the whole thing, and it's something I'll never do again. I put a driven business owner in a room for about 11 hours. But we came out and emerged with a level of clarity that they had not seen before, because our vision stories aren't a sentence or a paragraph. They're multiple pages. They're about 3 to 5 pages in length.
Right.
Multiple
It's a vision story.
That's right. It's a story, not a statement. And the reason is because, you said you went to CU. We'll actually be in Denver this weekend. And when you go out there and you fly into the Denver airport, and then you look west and you see those mountains, you drive up to Boulder and you see Boulder at the base and all of these things that are going on. If you were to just ask me, hey, do you want to go to Boulder? Well, if I've never been to Boulder and don't know anything about Colorado, I'd be like,
why?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then if you start to explain what's in Boulder, what Boulder looks like, what it feels like, the experiences that are there, the fact that you've got this sort of world-class / maniacal head football coach that's, whatever. But, you start explaining all these things. Now you're tempted, like, okay, I'm interested, or I'm not. And so you've made it very clear for me. So what a vision story does is actually acts as a divisive tool to bring in the people that are enthusiastically excited about what you're describing, and to also repel the people who are not super interested. So you don't have to waste their time. They don't have to waste your time. And so we walked through this thing, and I ended up meeting with one of these guys about 2 weeks later to kind of do a presentation of what we had laid out during that full day together. And he sat across the conference table at his business, and he said, this is the most clarity I've ever had in spades. What do we do now? And I remember sitting there and I said, I think we have to start meeting every week. And he goes, all right, how much? And Deb, I literally just made up the number.
Pulled a number out of the air.
And I'm really glad I did. I'm glad I didn't go, well, let me take some time. And, I just said it and went with it. That's not how I do things, by the way. I'm overly, I overthink.
You're a planner. Your dad was an engineer. You got that from him.
So I've got that. I've got elements of that. And so, but I said it, we moved on. And then through that, he led me to these people, and these people led me to
Mhm.
these people. And today we have a business at almost 10 years in. So I
Mhm.
want to be very clear. Again, I want to give the backstory
Mhm.
and not just the present day.
Mhm.
So present day, that's sort of some of the backstory.
Mhm.
Present team of 10 full-time, and we serve 92 businesses around the
Mhm.
country. About 84% of those are in what we call the AEC industry, or the architecture, engineering, construction
Okay.
industry. And um, and we have, out of the team of 10, 7 are full-time
Mhm.
business coaches. And
Mhm.
we do our own internal training. We've built an entire
Mhm.
proprietary process, both digitize the process, one-on-one coaching, all of those things into a bona fide business that serves business owners around the country to liberate them from the chaos. So that's sort of, now there's a lot of meat in between that we
Mhm.
can go whatever direction you want to go, but that's
Mhm.
sort of the genesis and the modern day of where we got today.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that is fascinating. You have done so much. And I think one of the things that makes us successful business people are all those other layers,
Mm.
and that is part of it. But the first thing that really interested me was, why did you name your company My Business on Purpose?
Uh, yeah, I don't get that question much. So I read a book well, there's a couple of books that I've
Mhm. And you are a
read.
big
One,
book
obviously, is
person.
sort of the
Hmm.
foundation.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love books. Was it Thomas Jefferson said, "I cannot live without books,"
Hmm.
um, and I think I agree with him on that. So one of the books I read way back is foundational book. Anybody in business should read this book, E-Myth Revisited by
Hmm.
Michael Gerber. He's sort
Hmm.
of the foundational, kind of the gospel writer of In Not On, or excuse me, On Not in the business. And so I read that, and when I read that, kind of Susie the pie shop owner,
Hmm.
I realized, wow, what a great awareness of the problem.
Hmm.
I just didn't feel like there was a resolution to
Hmm.
it. And so then 16, and I'm starting to read these other books. And there was one I read by a small pastor, really probably nobody knows who he is. His name's Depp Powers. And he wrote a book that sort of lent itself. The title might have actually been Business on Purpose, or
Hmm.
Live a Business on Purpose, or something like that.
Hmm.
Because what I was seeing, that friends who either own businesses or worked for businesses, that there was so much chaos within what was happening that it was ruining their home life. And not only that, but I had a
Hmm.
deep core conviction. I get the question all the time is, why did you go to seminary and really not go be a lifelong
Hmm.
pastor? I
Hmm.
never wanted to be.
Hmm.
What I wanted to do was, I wanted to merge my faith with my, and even not quite knowing what my work would be, I wanted to be able to merge my faith with my work. And so what I ended up doing for 2 decades almost is trying to figure out, how do I merge work and
Hmm.
faith?
Hmm.
Because I see these people working over here, and yet they segment their faith. They put it on
Right,
Sunday or
right. I
Saturday or
go to
whenever they
church
meet,
on Sunday, and
whatever. Yeah. And they use their margin, if there is any, in their business to write a check and do all that stuff. I didn't want to
hmm.
do that. There was
Hmm.
sort of a, and so today when we look around, it was funny yesterday, and for whatever religious background your audiences might be, I know there's people from around the world, but in my faith background, the sort of the pinnacle of our faith in who Jesus is one of the things he said. He said, "Turn around, just turn around."
Hmm.
Now, the religious word is repent, but literally he
Hmm.
just means turn around. Or Dallas Willard says he means think about your thinking. That
Hmm.
think about your thinking, turn
Right.
around. And then he says, the kingdom of God is right here. Like,
Hmm.
it's right, the community of God is right here.
Hmm.
And what I wanted to be able to do was to go into business
Hmm.
and realize that when I walk into a room, or when somebody else who walks with Jesus walks in a room, then the kingdom, God's domain, his area, his
Hmm.
influence
Hmm.
is there.
Right.
And so when we were thinking about the name of the business,
Hmm.
I wanted business itself to be an outlet of our purpose.
Okay.
I did not want business to generate money by which we could go live out, be able to come in on
Hmm.
and go, this is this is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And this is our work. Dallas Willard says we have a job,
Mm-hmm.
we have a ministry, and we have our work.
Mm-hmm.
And these three layers, your job is what you get paid to do.
Mm-hmm.
Your ministry, your service,
Mm-hmm.
don't think ministry in a religious term. Like
Mm-hmm.
think about the ministry of defense in
Right,
Nigeria or
right.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Your ministry, you serve people,
Mm-hmm.
is the service that you give to people.
Mm-hmm.
And your work is the total body of the good things that you've done to the
Mm-hmm.
people around you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And those three layers. And so I didn't, we want business to be seen as a platform for value now, not something that you use business for to get a check for and go do something else with it.
Right. Well, first, we're still having a little audio difficulties. We're just going to keep going. So, because we're having such a great conversation, I know people will forgive us for the little glitches that we're having. First, I love that you bring your faith into your business because, as you said, for so many people, they pigeonhole it. Just like sometimes they pigeonhole their families also, right? I always laugh at the people who say, I'm going to have a work-life balance. No, for one thing, that's a 50-50, and that's never going to happen. I don't care if you're an employee at McDonald's. When you're home, you're still thinking about, oh, I did this and that happened and all of those things.
Yeah.
But to me, it's all about being authentic to ourselves and our families, our hobbies, our faith. All of those are so much a part of what we do and who we are. And when we try and put those in silos, it doesn't work. So I love that your faith is so much a part of your business. And it's very clear in your book because you use scripture in a lot of places where you're describing things. But it was funny when I was looking at Business on Purpose, my thought was of all the people who I talk to, and they say, yeah, I just kind of fell into doing this. And because they did that, they never really sat down and planned it out. Or they hired somebody. They got these really cool business and or marketing plans in these really fancy binders, and they put them on the shelf behind them. And they never again looked at them. And so for me, Business on Purpose is everything you do, you have to be thinking about. And why are you doing it that way?
And then once you have it, there's got to be a mechanism to, you just alluded to this, looking at every day. So for instance, one of the things that we have is it's called a culture calendar. And what we realize is people talk culture. They all want culture. And we realize that culture is not a business term.
Right.
We in business hijacked it from science. Culture is a science term. It comes from the Petri dish. And so when you put something in a Petri dish and submit it to heat, yes, heat, light, water, moisture, all those things, time, then stuff grows out. And so we ask ourselves, well, when we say, hey, this is pretty, I think this is a phrase that should offend people who work hard on their culture. So when this phrase is made, wow, Deb, you are so lucky to have great culture. Really? So it's like going to your garden, you've got this beautiful garden out in front, you've labored, you work at night on it. And then I come over and go, wow, Deb, you're so lucky to have a good garden. And you're like, no, I work at this. This isn't luck. This is something that I labor at. And so this is how stuff grows. I'm lucky that things grow without me sitting there and pulling them out of the ground. Okay, that's fine. But like, no, I cultivated this. And so we have a lot of people that say they want to build culture, not understanding that you actually have to cultivate culture.
Right.
And so what we did is we built this thing called a culture calendar. So take 52 weeks of the year, and I'll tell you how to do this. Anybody can do this. And it's on, we joke and say it's on a super expensive piece of software called a spreadsheet.
Yeah, you have lots of those Excel spreadsheets that you refer to.
Yeah. And so just open a spreadsheet. 52 weeks across the top, and then take all the elements of culture that you want. We want to write thank you notes. Great. Put that in the left-hand side. We want to celebrate birthdays. Put it there. We want to have weekly team meetings. Put it there. Everything that you want to do in the culture, put it there. And as you grow, you will add more things to that, by the way. Then go over to for us, it's week 513 this week. We just did it Tuesday or 514, I think. And the guy who leads our team, and he goes over to the week of 514 and goes down the individual cells, and we got them all highlighted, the things that we need to do this week out of this list over here. And so we look at it every single, actually, I'm lying. We look at it 50 weeks a year. There's 2 weeks we don't look at it, the week of July 4th and the week of Christmas.
Right, because you're not at work.
We take our meetings off those weeks and get everybody a break those weeks. And so, but we look at it every single week. I am, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to the airport. This is a business on purpose. I'm actually going to lead our first, what we're calling our first BOP wedding. One of our clients, their director of construction, their selections coordinator, getting married, and they actually asked if I would do the wedding.
Oh,
and
how wonderful.
Yeah, flying out to Sacramento, we're going to do the wedding, going to have a great time. And then I'm going to Austin to go speak. Our entire team knew that about 3 months ago that I was going to be doing that. Right. Then they knew it 2 months ago, then a month ago, then 2 weeks ago, then last week. Because they see it coming and we talk about it. Hey, this trip's coming. Hey, this is the next trip. Thomas is going to be out. Brent's going to be here. Right. Brandon's going to be over there. Patrice is going to be out. And so we know these things because it's on our culture calendar. And so you mentioned the binders. We actually don't print our stuff out and put them in binders because we use them. They're all on tools on the computer, and then we've got them mapped out. You have to change them. Yeah, we got to update them. And so we don't keep them there. Sometimes I will print them out just to have the satisfaction that we've got it and to physically see what we've built. I think it's cool sometimes to see that. Right. But otherwise, we've got to always be using these things and updating these things in very pragmatic ways.
Right. Right. And when we talk about culture, I think it is something that it's intrinsic in the organization. And I've been in numerous other organizations, and it's very interesting to me because, of course, what happens is there's the flavor of the month cultures, right? We're going to do this, we're going to do that. This is what the HR people tell us. Well, they last for the month, right? And then you have we have a different CEO, a different manager, whoever, who doesn't think we should celebrate birthdays because, that's, somebody, so-and-so doesn't need the sugar and all sorts of things. And so it tends to get lost. And then what happens a lot of times is then you have no culture. And actually that is the culture, right? That you don't celebrate. And I think celebrating is one of the biggest things that we should be doing in companies. Whether it's celebrating that, oh my gosh, Scott cleared out his email inbox today, or, the weddings, all of those various things, we need to be celebrating and showing our team how important they are to us, because we celebrate when we're at home. Again, it's making sure that we're blending all of those things. And I think companies that know we have our rules and we're going to be very strict. No, and sometimes the cultures clash with what others think. I was looking through your book. I'm in Atlanta, and one of the big CEOs that you talk about is the founder of Chick-fil-A. Now I'm a Chick-fil-A fan. Chick-fil-A up the street. I go to Chick-fil-A. But I also know that there are people who have issues with them, and I'm always kind of dumbfounded because I'm like, y'all understand they're closed on Sunday for a reason, right? Kind of like Hobby Lobby. Yeah, they're closed on Sunday, so that but that's part of that culture, and when you're applying for a job, when you're doing business with them, that's what their culture is, and then you can choose yes or no.
Yeah. Culture is necessarily divisive, just like vision is necessarily divisive. Right. Just by the way, like compensation should necessarily be divisive. There's a great book called Scaling Up Compensation by a guy named Bern Harnish, who walks through this idea. And he says compensation, or what he would call reward systems, should be built in such a way where they attract the right people and they repel the wrong people. Right. And so culture should be the exact same way. I'll tell you a story, and I'll have to look this up. We just one of our team members did a podcast with this business on our podcast, so I'll try to find the number so that you can listen to it. But we've got a business. It's called Coastal Shores Landscaping. They're actually in the Hilton Head area, and when I met with them about 8 years ago, we sat down and. This is a well-told story, so it's nothing that I can't share.
No
the
divulging.
Owner said, "Hey, the owner said, I get all this stuff for like the management staff and all that stuff, but like our labor crew, honestly, some of them don't even like how do we get this to the labor crew?
Right.
And do we make the effort? I mean, he was trying to be really kind but direct all at the same
Right.
time.
Yeah, they're
And
hourly workers. They're,
yes, it could be here today, gone tomorrow, right?
right.
And so I asked him, I said, hey, are they endowed with the same rights, opportunities, all of those things as you are? And he said, well, no, I don't think they have the same opportunities, but certainly they should have the same rights. And we're, both human beings and all this stuff. And I said, all right, well, then I want to challenge you to treat them like human beings. And Deb, they took that and they started building out all the tools, the vision, the mission, the values, the org chart structures, subdivided bank accounts, job roles, everything. And then we got to this whole cultural element. And they built something a little over 5 years ago they called SALT training. I don't remember the acronym, but it's something. Service and sales, I think was the S, and AL, and the L is leadership and something else. And then the fourth week, the T stands for something that is what they would call life training. And over the last 5 years, there was one big problem. I'll give you anecdotal. There's a lot of things that they've helped these guys solve, but one anecdotal problem is a lot of these guys would get their paycheck. They would go to the grocery store and cash it because they don't have a bank account. And then what do you do when cash is in your pocket?
You spend it.
And so, and not only that, but they had to pay to get their check cashed from the grocery store. Well, one of the owners added up the fees and what it would cost. And they actually found that it cost about 1 week's worth of salary for them to cash their checks at the grocery store. And they were getting their cash in their pocket and they were going and spending it. And so they're having to give out advances and loans and everything else. So here's what they decided to do. First, they were going to teach at their life training. And this training happens every week, by the way. It happens 50 weeks a year, every single week. But the fourth week of the month is when they dive into the life stuff. First few weeks, they're doing training on how to, sharpen mower blades.
Right. The stuff that they need to do their job.
Yes. And so that final week, they do this training and they started training on personal finance, very, very basic level. And then they finished that series of personal finance training with the mandate that by October of, and I don't remember what year it was, let's call it 2019, October of 2019, they were moving to a mandatory direct deposit program.
So they had to have a bank account.
You had to have a bank account. And then they brought their banker in to help people set them up.
Oh, I love it.
Right there in the
because
office.
that's one of the things that I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to go. There's a bank.
And a lot of times if certain people walk into a bank, they don't get the service and all that. So they brought their banker into the room and the banker helped everybody get a bank account set up. 100% of their people now have a bank account, which effectually gave them the dignity of being able to have their money in a designated account, just as the majority of society does. The second is it took the temptation to spend all their money right away. The third is they set up a savings program where X% would go into another bank account called a savings account. So they had an automatic mechanism there. And then there was one other thing that came out. Oh, they gave them a 1 week raise because they didn't have
to make up for that difference. Right.
And so all of these things were going through that you could start to see. So then they thought, what other challenges do we have? A few of the guys didn't have driver's licenses. So they ran them through a driver's license program. Now all their guys have driver's licenses. And so just on and on and on, they were helping to solve real human issues at the personal level through the business. How do they do that? They set up their cultural plan, the culture calendar, and they started working it over and over and over again. So now what happens is when you listen to their podcast episode, you're going to be tempted to go, oh, we got to start doing that. And then you'll want to get to where they're at 5 years down the road instead of 5 years ago. And just go, no, stop. Meet Thursday. That's all you got to do. Meet Thursday and talk about X. What do we talk about? Does it have, I don't care. Talk about something that relates to your business, that relates to your home life, that I don't care. Just start doing it on a regular basis. We have actually added in our culture calendar every week 2 to 3 minute training on both our administrative handbook, because this is crazy. I wrote it and I forget what's in it.
Because you're not looking at it every day.
And so we're a team of professionals and we just had training on dress code. about 4 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do it again one
Mm-hmm.
time this year.
Right.
We also have another line item in there for technical or coach training.
Mm-hmm.
We train our coaches with radical determination.
Mm-hmm.
We have a coaches meeting every week. That's
Mm-hmm.
a synthesis of everything we learned last week.
Mm-hmm.
We bring it in, we all discuss it. And then we've got every bit of our core roadmap digitized,
Mm-hmm.
not only for our clients, but also for us as coaches.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
we review it every single, we review one module every single
Mm-hmm.
week, and then we discuss about it. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of radical training going on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, gosh, Scott, how did you do that? Because we showed up this week and did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we showed up next week and did
Right.
it. And so that's the core. And the moment
Mm-hmm.
we stop showing up, we're no longer doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the culture, to your point earlier,
Mm-hmm.
goes into the bias.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say no culture is actually a culture,
Mm-hmm.
really what it is the culture that Deb decided for my culture
Mm-hmm.
to be,
Right.
instead of me deciding it
Mm-hmm.
for myself.
Right. In your book, you talk about the difference between coach and consultant. And I love that, because I am more of a consultant and you are a coach.
Yeah.
But explain the difference, because it is very important, folks. And so when you are thinking of hiring this position, you need to know there is a difference.
Yeah. All right. You're about to get me in trouble, but that's okay. I'm going to go down this road because I wrote about it and I probably
There we go,
shouldn't
down
have.
that rabbit hole.
But, So here's what we found. And again, when we look back historically, this is not necessarily what a coach should be or a consultant
Mm-hmm.
should be,
Right.
but historically what we've seen they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we think about consultant, usually what we think about is we're going out to a person like Deb and we're going, hey, Deb, you've been in this situation before.
Mm-hmm.
We've never been here. So can you model for us
Right.
a playbook
Mm-hmm.
of how we navigate through this based
Mm-hmm.
on what you saw before?
Mm-hmm.
And then the consultant comes in, gives the playbook, and fundamentally goes, there you go.
Right.
And if
I come in and do one thing, like I do social media for somebody.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
One very targeted thing. And that's what we call strategy consulting.
Mm-hmm.
And so we define ourselves as principle-based coaches. When you say, hey, what should my marketing strategy be?
Mm-hmm.
We don't care. What we care is that you take whatever strategy you have and process the mess out of that thing so that you do it repetitively over and over and over again. Because you could come in, Deb, the consultant, could tell you, hey, marketing through SEO in Southern Latvia works now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, it's not going to work in 6 months.
No.
But it works today.
Mm-hmm.
What we do as coaches is to come in and go, okay, we're going to put up a program to where every 3 months or 6 months, you're going to reconnect with Deb to get your download of what you need to do. And then we're going to hold you accountable. Make sure you're doing that over and over and over again.
Right.
And tweaking. So the consultant usually, I don't want to necessarily say as a one-time thing, but is usually a shorter term engagement.
Right.
High level, usually a lot more expensive, by the way, because they've got this high level stuff, and you should be able to plug and play and get an immediate return. Coaches usually are at a low level, long term.
Right.
And what a coach does, we research, we game plan, we do all of those things. We're not just going to come and, if you're in the construction business, tell you the step-by-step to estimating. We don't need to do that. You already know how to estimate. What our job is to take it out of your head, get it documented so that it's repetitive over and over and over again. So the coach prescribes what we call the RPM method: repetition, predictability, and meaning. Whereas the consultant comes in more as a near-term, short-term thing. And then you bring them back in later down the road and then back in again. So it may be a long-term engagement, but it's usually a day here, quarter later, a day here. Right. Whereas we as coaches, we actually tell our clients, we have up to 52 touch points a year, 24 mandatory, 24 optional, and 4 that are live events that we all get together. So we want to be able to do that throughout the year. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And of course, it really makes sense because of your D1 football background, right? And because sports, athletic coaches are very much that. I was thinking as you were talking about, the quarterback who stands and, they've got the tire down at the 50 yards away, and it's throw the football, throw the football, throw the football, throw the football. Or, the golf player who's gonna, hit that, hit. And you just keep working on that until it's ingrained in your brain. This and muscle memory is maybe one of the easiest ways to put that, especially with sports. But, and but the other thing, you talk about this in your book, is we all need coaches and we need them forever. I love my business coach. She has pushed me to start an initiative focused around helping people who have cancer based on my experience. And, and it's just so interesting. But I think so many people, well, I'm a business owner. I don't have time. I'm the manager. I don't need a coach. I don't need somebody telling me what to do. And I always look at them and I say, you know what? Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods had coaches all the time. They knew the importance of you always, always, always have a coach. And, maybe it's, they're doing different things. And of course, you can have more than one coach. We see that clearly, sports would be a great analogy for that, because you've got your head coach, you've got your position coaches, you've got your nutrition, your training, all of those various things. And so, a successful business, what I find is that they have multiple coaches.
And yeah, I mean, if you look back, you mentioned all these athletes. It was actually my first ever sales piece with Business on Purpose. I had a picture of Peyton Manning and Michael Jordan. And I had the quote from Bill Gates, famous quote, any coach knows this, that everybody needs a coach. Eric Schmidt said something very, very similar. I think he's still chairman of Alphabet or whatever with Google, but they understand that everybody needs a coach. All of the elite athletes, Lionel Messi still has a coach. He's the best in the world at the game of soccer. Like, all of these folks have it. And you go, well, what are they going to teach them? I don't know that they're going to teach them anything new. It goes back to the repetition, the predictability, and the meaning, because when you have repetition, you build muscle memory at that point. When you have predictability, you know how to conquer certain things because you've already seen them during training. And then when you have meaning, we tend to fly past the meaning, but we can't, because here's what ends up happening. Put yourself in this position. I've got a friend, his name's Chad Jeffers. He is the dobro player for Carrie Underwood. So dobro is this unique instrument. It's kind of steel guitar, kind of guitar. He's brilliant at it. And I'll never forget, he came through Columbia, South Carolina one time, and I was up there and I said, hey, let's connect. So we just met up in the lobby and just hung out and chit-chatted for a little bit. And I said, Chad, I got to ask you, I've never asked you this before. Let me play fanboy for just a minute. But like, what's it like? Like, you play in front of, 18 and 30 and 50,000 people. Like, what's that like? And he said, Scott, it's cool. It's amazing. Don't get me wrong. He said, but there are many mornings I wake up and I have no idea where I'm at.
Right. Because he's been on tour. He's like, he gets on the bus, he gets off the bus, he gets on the bus, he gets off the bus. And
then one time I texted him, I saw him playing on a Carrie Underwood Christmas special. This was a couple of years ago. And he was there in the background. I could see him. So I just texted him. I was like, hey man, I see you on, whatever. Hope you're good. And he texted me right back while they were playing. I'm like,
aren't you supposed to be paying attention?
I was like, how are you texting me? He's like, oh man, we recorded that 4 months ago.
Right.
It actually was burning up. We were in this winter stuff and it was like 89 degrees outside or whatever. And so we got in a back and forth over text, and I said, hey, because she was, Carrie Underwood was about to do a Las Vegas residency. I said, how long do you guys prepare for this? And he said, once we get all of our stuff and our set list and everything else, he said, we prepare as a band for 2 months, 6 days a week, 14 hours a day.
Wow.
And he said, but before that, I have to spend about 7 days a week, 12 hours a day by myself, just doing it. Right. He said, because when I'm in front of 20,000 people, I can't think. I don't have time to think.
Right.
I have to smile and react. And so I can't think about any of it. And when you do that, Deb, over time, you kind of lose, I remember the old George Strait thing. He just started singing mindless words because nobody was paying attention to him. Right.
Yeah.
And he started to lose all meaning of what he was doing. And so what a coach does is they reinforce not the surface level meaning. That's easy when you show up in front of a crowd and they're smiling or laughing or whatever. That's easy. It's when you're showing up to your 180th crowd and you're in Tuscaloosa and you're like, what am I doing with my life? Like, that's when the coach comes in and goes, hey, I want you to notice that face right out there. That's who we're focused on. And they guide you to that point. Yes. And they guide you to that point because you've already put in the repetition. You've already put in the predictability.
Right. You know that song. You could literally play it in your sleep.
And the predictability if the lights go out. We've practiced all of that. Now I need to help you find the meaning in what you're doing. And so those RPMs are so crucial. And that's what a coach brings to the table for sure.
Right. And I think we see that whether it's, a business person, a performer, whatever, when it has just become rote to them. Right. And they're just out there, they're doing it. They don't care. And I think, we're like, do they even notice that we're here?
Yeah.
And, I've done that when I've been, at a conference or something and somebody's up giving a presentation and they're just up there and they're saying it. And then, of course, what happens is something will interrupt or distract them. And then they're lost, right? Because they knew they were, and all of those things. But it's that playing off the crowd. It's, if you're the CEO standing up in front of your team and you notice one person sitting there playing on their phone. Okay, what's going now? You may or may not call them out. Who knows? I mean, that depends sometimes it depends on your culture, right? But you need all of that's going on. And you're right, that coach is teaching you, okay, you don't just get up there and repeat it and go on and on and on with it. You need to be paying attention to everything that is going on around you. And of course, the important thing with a coach is they give you those scenarios. What happens if? What are you going to do if?
Yeah. It's a constant state of game. When I was in sports, you would watch, our coaches would, during the season, they would spend the night at the facility. They wouldn't even go home.
Right. Because they were so focused on
it. Right or wrong. It was not a life I would want, but it was film. It was contingency plays. The first 10 to 15 plays of every game were scripted, completely scripted.
Right. Oh yeah.
And when you consider you only get 5 to 80 offensive plays a game, and already whatever that percentage is, 15, 20% of those are scripted. Why is that? Well, it's because the nerves are so deep when you go into a game. If we can go ahead and get the repetition predictability out of the way, now we can be present in whatever moment we're in to react to whatever we need to do, because we've got it so locked in. Right. So huge value, both from a consulting and a coaching standpoint.
And many
the
businesses
reason that we articulate
need
is because you have to have both. The coach is the long-term, make sure. The consultant comes in and goes, all right, here's your next strategy download. It's like the consultant brings, if you think about Microsoft 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, the consultant brings the 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 models. The coach ensures that the 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, all the interim things get done in between the big major updates.
Right. And it is about that practice. I was thinking back, we mentioned CU. Well, we actually made the NCAA basketball tournament this year. Not surprising. It was predicted. And one of our players, and oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he hit the shot at the clock that won the game. Right. And it was one of those where when you looked at it, it looked like he went, just winged it up there and it just happened to go in. Yeah. And afterwards, they're talking to both him and to Tad, the Coach Boyle, and they said, what, and there were huge crowds and lots of noise and all sorts of stuff, and they said we practice that. We practice it and we practice it and we practice it. And you do see times where you do have to wing it. But the thing is, when you have practiced, when you have to wing it, it makes it easier.
Yeah. We used to practice, especially when we go to like University of Tennessee or some of the big places with really big
and they're
noise.
Singing Rocky Top 900 different times at you.
We would practice and they would crank the speakers in the stadium high volume and they would run crowd noise the entire practice. So you couldn't hear anything.
Right.
And so you went in there. We would practice with wet footballs to simulate rain, to do all of these things. So putting those things in place is so crucial. Now, here's the important thing as well, is when we go in, a lot of times what we do is we sort of do internal reactive training as a team. We see a problem and we go, God, we need to have a come to Jesus meeting. So we bring everybody in the room. Hey, this is a problem. We can't get this right. We got to do this. God, Diane, we need you to do this, this, and this. Steve, we need you to do this, this, and this. And we move on. And then we talk to the owner in a month or 2 months, and they're just exasperated. They're like, I told them ... And my question is always, did you tell them again?
And
Well,
again.
no, I told them once. They're grown. They're grown adults.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did you tell them again?
Mm-hmm.
And my first ever manager at Pfizer used to always tell me, the Skip Clarkson, he'd say, Scott, repetition is the mother of all learning.
Mm-hmm.
And he would always say it 3 times, back to
Mhm.
back to back. Repetition is the mother of all learning. Repetition is the mother of all learning. And that was 24 years ago. I still
Mhm.
remember it.
Mhm.
And so for us to be able to go in and, well, I told them once, we need to root that out of our
Mhm.
business owner dictionary
Right.
or lexicon or whatever. Get it out.
Mhm.
Just like we need to retire that one, just like this is the way we've always done it, or any of
Mhm.
those other sort
Mhm.
of, you mentioned cancer earlier. Those are cancerous statements into the body of a
Right.
business.
And they just
When you
eat
start doing
away.
things like that. They do over time.
Right.
And so we've got to get in the mode. And that's where a great consultant, great coach comes in and goes, hey, I heard you say that. And I get what you're saying. I'm not mad at you, but I'm going to ask you not to say that again.
Right.
And because I care for you. I want you to win. And so if you continue to say that, you're going to sabotage yourself. You go back to the concert thing you're talking about, and you can see when a performer has gotten bored, they'll either do one or two things. They'll just kind of get bored and just halfway, or they'll go the other way. This is actually happening with a country music star right now. And they'll sabotage themselves. They'll get so heavy into something, whether it's substance abuse or whatever, just to make it interesting again.
Right.
And they'll start to sabotage themselves. That's why you've got to have boundaries. We got a kind of a BOPism that says boundaries bring freedom. Boundaries bring freedom.
Right.
So the only way that the CU basketball player you're talking about earlier, we're even talking about him, is because there's a boundary around something called a basketball court. If there were no sidelines around a court called a basketball court, we wouldn't talk about him. But because there's boundaries, those boundaries bring the freedom for that guy to make a last second shot.
Right.
And now we have an interesting story to tell.
Right. And I tell people, especially when you're on your own, but it doesn't matter that you as that business person have to set boundaries. One of the biggest boundaries I did, now I started my company over 20 years ago. All my clients went, well, you work from home, therefore you work 24/7. Right. Because, they just assumed that if they emailed me, or called me or did whatever. Now, we're not talking 2 a.m, but they also assumed holidays, weekends, all of those things. And I learned very quickly to set boundaries and communicate them. That's the other thing. It's not a boundary if nobody knows it exists. So I told them, I said, these are my office hours. I am more than happy to do whatever it is that you need, evenings, weekends, holidays, but it will cost you double. And of course they all, for the most part, go, okie dokie, well, it can wait. Now, obviously there are times where it is an emergency, and do I charge them double? It depends on what's going on, and all of those various things. But we also have to keep those boundaries ourselves. I am not going to respond to somebody's email at 10 o'clock at night if I have told them they can't email me. But it really hit home for me to do that when we moved here from Colorado. And my biggest client, so I'm in Atlanta, so the Eastern time zone. My biggest client was in California, and it's a 4-hour time difference. And we'd been here maybe a week when she called, and she said, just checking to see if you have, if you're, because she knew that we were moving, all that good stuff. She said, if you've got your computer hooked up again. And I said, well, yeah, I'm getting there. And she said, well, I emailed you a while ago. And I said, you get that it's 7:30 at night for me. And she, it kind of took her back because she hadn't thought of that, whatever it was, and so I said, okay, I'm going to make you a deal. You don't expect me to respond at 7:30 p.m. my time, and I don't expect you to respond at 4:30 a.m. your time. But again, we had to communicate those boundaries and then keep them, and know that, okay, they might not be written in stone, painted on the floor, but it's our decision if we're going to nudge them. But yeah, those boundaries are so important. And it's, we set boundaries with our kids, we set boundaries with whatever. We need to set our boundaries at work, and and think about why you're doing them.
So this is sort of a discussion that has been really top of mind. I like what you said. It's not a boundary if nobody knows it exists. Michael Gerber said it this way. He said, if it's not written down, you don't own it. we've put our own spin on it to say if it's not written down, it doesn't exist.
Right. And that's so important to you. You talk about that over and over again in your book.
Mm-hmm. And so with that, there is a great tidal wave of new work coming out that I think is so helpful. Cal Newport is a deep thinker on this. He wrote a great book called Deep Work, wrote another book called A World Without Email. And his latest book is called Slow Productivity. Highly recommend those to help understand how the mind works, and this idea of getting deep work. There's a brand new book out last couple of months by a guy named Jonathan Haidt. Anybody who are parents, this is sort of a necessity book. It's called The Anxious Generation. He's the same author that co-authored the Coddling of the American Mind. But in this book, The Anxious Generation, they give real stats, real things that we'll begin to understand. 2010 to 2013 was sort of a nexus point where you had the convergence of this, these four oceans that were coming together. You had unlimited wireless internet was coming online at that point. You had ubiquitous smartphones everywhere. You had the front-facing camera now essentially inviting us into relentless selfies. You had this radical amount of storage to do that, and Facebook bought Instagram. So you add all those things together, and now you've got 12 and 13 and 32 and 52-year-olds walking around with these things. And what had happened and the effects on mental health and everything else are dramatic. They're hockey stick at that point, right around 2012, 2013. And so Jonathan Haidt talks about it in his book, Anxious Generation. But here's the culmination of all of this. One other book, Sherry Turkle wrote a book called Reclaiming Conversations. So if you take those and kind of merge all the thoughts that are happening, here's what we're finding. The human brain cannot multitask. It's not possible.
Right.
It can flip back and forth.
I go squirrel
really
and I'm
fast
lost.
Yes. And so we can flip back and forth really fast between things. We can do that. We cannot multitask. It's not possible. So to have email open here, to have text open here, to have Slack open here, to have your work window open here, whatever, you cannot do it. It's not possible. So what we do is we wake up, we go into work at 7:30, and there's a study out of University of California, I think it's Santa Barbara, that said when you get when you get distracted out of deep work, so and that's as easy as a zzz on your phone. That's it. When you get distracted out of deep work, on average, it takes you 23 minutes to get back to the level of depth that you were at in whatever it is that you were working on. So follow the math. If you came into work at 7:30, you're 10 minutes into deep work. It's 7:40. Zzz. Okay, let's add 23 minutes. Now we're at 8:03. Keep doing that all day. You go home at 5:30 and you're trying to figure out why you got nothing done.
My first project of the day is still not done.
You're not done. And yet, if you blocked deep work, told all the people you love and know, I am not available from 8 to 10 or 2 to 4 or whatever. Oh, I can't do that. We hear that all the time, Dad. I can't do that. Really? Like you're a special snowflake? Like what? Why? Why can't you do that?
Right.
We're paying you to get this work done. And so, so if you blocked your work for 2 hours, I challenge anybody to do this. Block everything for 2 hours. Phone is not in the room. Email is not open at all. It's completely shut down.
Right.
Anything that is an impulse to you is out. Do it for 2 hours and see what you get done.
Right. The world does not stop, folks.
Nope.
Nope. And I love in your book how you talk about the fact that, if something happens during that time, then you say to that person, okay, I can do your project, but that means I'm not doing Bob's.
This project.
Yeah. And so it's your choice. And sometimes that project really is more important and Bob will understand. But maybe that comes back to the borders and boundaries things. I am working on this right now. This is what I'm doing. You will not interrupt me. I love it when I do my podcast and people have small kids at home. And I've had more than one tell me that they have a sign on their door that says, unless you are bleeding, do not knock. Right?
And if so, call 911.
Yeah. But yeah.
Well, it's funny to think about this, and I know this is a little facetious, but just go with me on it for a second. Is sometimes I'll say this to people, and they get a little frustrated, but then they also understand. Is, hey, I can't put my phone away because if my husband calls,
right,
and it's an emergency.
Mhm.
Okay, fair.
Mhm.
Or they'll say, hey, I can't put this away if my
Mhm.
kid calls in it's emergency.
Mhm.
Fair. So why don't we do this? Why don't we all agree as a community that we're all going to put money in through the form of taxes, and we're
Mhm.
going to create a service.
Mhm.
And this service is spread around the country
Mhm.
with full-time trained professionals
Yes.
who can
Hmm.
respond to the most
Mhm.
urgent need that you have way better than you can respond.
Yep.
Let's see if we can put a policy together to get that done. Oh,
Mhm.
wait, it's already done. And
Yeah.
you don't have to remember eight
Mhm.
numbers. You have to remember three.
Mhm.
And all you have to do is call 911 and they will
Mhm.
take better care
Right.
of whatever emergency that
Mhm.
it is.
Mhm.
The likely in one of the books that I referenced, I forget what it was, they said the likelihood of an emergency is less than a
Mhm.
fraction of 1%.
Right.
And so we
Mhm.
build all this
Mhm.
fear around something that
Mhm.
statistically never
Right.
happens.
Well, and there are times where it's like, okay, this person is in surgery, so I need to be
Yeah.
watching my phone. Yeah, I mean, there
One of
are,
our team members is having
yeah,
a baby next month.
yeah,
Like, yes, of
yeah,
course.
and so yeah, you're really watching those things, but yeah, for the most part, it can wait.
Yes.
And so I love it, but. Oh my gosh, Scott, we've just scratched the surface on this. I didn't get through my notes. We didn't even talk about your book and why it's called Let Your Business Burn. So
Yeah.
we're going to leave that as a teaser because I definitely
That's
want to
good.
have you on again. Because yeah, I mean, this is just this to me is just so absolutely fascinating, and more importantly, I think it's absolutely critical for
Mm,
every business, even
mm,
if you're the one person shop, to be thinking about all these things.
mm.
I'm going to encourage people to get your book and work through it. Again, one person shop, 10,000 employees. It's there's such great content there. But until we talk to you again, and for those people who are going, oh my gosh, Scott, I have to work with you, how do they find you and what are the services that you provide?
Thank you, Deb. That's kind. So probably the easiest way, and a way that we can serve you first, in doing that, if you go to mybusinessonpurpose.com/healthy. So mybusinessonpurpose.com/healthy. We have actually got an assessment. It's a legit assessment. This isn't like a bait and switch thing, whatever. You don't have to do this and then you got to go buy this to get the other thing. It is a legit assessment that's going to give you a numerical score on the back end health of your business.
Mm-hmm.
How you're utilizing vision, mission, value, systems, process, org charts, job roles, your financials, all those sorts of, you don't have to put in your financials, but it'll ask you some questions around
Mm-hmm.
that. And you'll get a score between 0 and 45, and it will tell you where you're at in range on a
Mm-hmm.
sort of a range of health
Mm-hmm.
on the back end, not the logos, not the stuff we see,
Right. Mm-hmm.
in the camera frame. It's
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff that we see off
Mm-hmm.
the camera frame, your dirty laundry and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get to see that. So if you go there, then your email goes in so we can reach out to you then, or you
Mm-hmm.
can go to mybusinessonpurpose.com/contact.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested in chatting with us and just
Mm-hmm.
learning more about what we do. We are not strong arming people. Hopefully you can tell that, and we'll hop on and we give way more value than we probably
Mm-hmm.
should. And so, yeah, we could hop on and have like a 30-minute
Mm-hmm.
time and we'll coach you
I love it.
during that time.
And your website has great resources. You've got your blog, you've got your podcast, and so there's
Yeah.
so much great content there that I really encourage people to go to your website.
Yeah. Yeah. We got, I think 600 or 700 episodes on our podcast. We got another 700 or 800 videos on our YouTube channel. I mean, there is plenty that we put. And if you're a DIYer, go do it. Like, it's out
Right.
there. We've given
Mm-hmm.
you the stuff. Just
Mm-hmm.
go do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's templates all in the back of the
Mm-hmm.
book. If you want to do that yourself,
Mm-hmm.
go do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I learned to podcast. I watched
Mm-hmm.
Pat Flynn's How to Podcast
Mm-hmm.
and built a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
9, 10 years ago, something like that. So
Yep.
if you're a DIYer, go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't and you need a coach, then call
Mm-hmm.
us. That's what we do.
I love it. Well, this really has been so much fun, and I can't wait to have you on again because, like I said, so much left unsaid that we still need to chat about. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yeah. I think the one thing that we always go back to is, in your desire to be liberated from chaos, to make time for what matters most. And everybody has that desire. That's usually why we start businesses. We get this question a bunch. What's the first thing that I can do? And there was a statement made. So I won't, this isn't from me. This is it's from actually a guy about 3,000 years ago. It was a Middle Eastern prophet, and it was recorded this way. Who heard this? Write the vision down so that those who read it may run. Write the vision down so that those who read it may run. What's the first thing you can do? Go write your vision down. And when you write that down, now we can either run with you or away from you, and both are good. You want to know who wants to run with you and who wants to run away from you. So we all want to be liberated from chaos. But in order to do that, we've got to start by writing our vision down so that those who read it can run.
Oh my gosh, I love it. This has been so much fun. I've been speaking with Scott Beebe, the founder of My Business on Purpose. I'm Deb Creer, and until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.